My name is Sara Jones. I'm 33 and I live in northern British Columbia, specifically from the province's northern capital, also known as Prince George. I've been very lucky to call Prince George my home for my entire life. I was born and raised in this community and I still live here to this day. I've even made the choice to raise my family here. I am the mother of two beautiful children. I have two daughters. My oldest daughter is Fallon, she's 14, and my baby is Emmy, and she's about to turn 2. I currently work as a stand-up comedian here in Prince George and the surrounding areas. And I am also a self-taught content creator. My life on the outside looks pretty typical. I love hanging out with my friends and spending time with my family. And I particularly love taking in all of the beautiful scenery that the North has to offer. The outdoors is one of my favorite parts about living in this area. For the most part, I have felt very fortunate to live the life that I have. But I have definitely been faced with my fair share of hardships. And with my hardships, definitely came some of my downfalls. In my early teenage years and throughout all of my 20s, I spent a lot of time drowning out a lot of the emotions I was feeling with things like alcohol. I also experienced the heartbreak of the separation from the father of my daughter, and that left me as a single mom by the time I was 20 years old. I was very determined, though, to make sure that I had a life that I would be proud of. I worked extremely hard at a job to make sure that I could make ends meet for my daughter and I. By the time I was 23, I found myself in a new relationship. And by the time I was 27, I was married. I pretty much felt like I had life figured out. I had a brand new car, a husband, a daughter, a beautiful house to live in. I really didn't have much to complain about. But then life actually started to happen. After only 1 year of marriage, I had to make the decision to walk away. Alcohol abuse, along with mental abuse, definitely factored into my decision to walk away from my marriage. During this time, I also felt like I was working a dead-end job. It was very unfulfilling to my daily life, and I slowly just began to feel like I had no clue what life was. I was lost. I was really lost, and I began to search for ways to help me feel good again. Things that didn't include my previous crutches, like alcohol or self-sabotage. I really dug into and started exploring different ways to make myself feel better. I had already gone down the avenue of visiting my doctor and seeking out mental health help, and that definitely got things started, but I felt still like something was severely missing from my life. I was desperate to latch onto something that would make me feel connected, something that could just give me a higher sense of purpose and help me understand my place here. I normally feel like this is a time in someone's life where they might consider to let in religion to help them heal. Now, although in my childhood I had definitely dipped into Christianity and attended church groups, but as an adult, I just felt like it didn't resonate with what I was feeling. Now, my young, naive mind had me believing that if I wasn't a Christian, then that meant that I was an atheist. So again, I pretty much just felt lost, like I had nothing to ground me. I really needed to find something to make myself feel connected. In an attempt to further keep my mental health on track, I really leaned into nature. I did exactly what they tell you to do, and I got my ass outside. I spent as much time as I could enjoying the outdoors, taking in the beauty of this area, the lakes, the sunsets, the sunrises, and from there, I definitely started to feel a more spiritual way of thinking and understanding. Then one day when I was out for a walk, I was listening to a podcast And the podcast in particular that I was listening to this week was one called Cooper Island. The podcast takes a deep look into the impacts of residential schools and the residential school survivors. Throughout that series, a lot of those survivors mentioned that their culture and their connection to their culture helped them heal and find their spirit again. Find your spirit again. That was a term that interested me. Finding my spirit again was exactly what I needed. I, from then on, was just so determined to learn as much as I could about Indigenous culture and spirituality. In the summer of 2023, I took it upon myself and I attended my first ever Indigenous Music Festival. And while I was there, I met so many inspiring people. I saw firsthand how powerful and beautiful the Indigenous culture actually was. After I came home from that festival, I felt so connected and energized, and for the first time in my life, I finally felt like I had found what I had been missing this entire time. I was very excited, to say the least, to be able to look a little bit more into the Indigenous culture and teachings and a little bit more of my own family's history. And perhaps I could maybe find a link between the two to really bring purpose to my life. But once I started asking questions and digging a bit deeper, I was not expecting it to change my life so suddenly. And the more I started to learn, the more questions I had to ask. And some of the answers only left me with 10 more questions.
Between the 1960s and the 1980s, tens of thousands of Indigenous kids were taken from their families and put into the child welfare system. It's known as the 60s scoop, and its effects are still being felt today.
I soon realized how dark of a chapter I was about to open.
Loss of family and identity, loss of language and culture, loss of history, similar to residential school survivors. And they don't always have information about where they came from. Some survivors are struggling to find their biological families.
It was August of 2003, and that's when things took a different turn for me. I got a phone call from a relative that changed my life.
I began to have a hunch that my mom might actually be a 60 scoop survivor. I kind of started piecing things together and having conversations with my mother, and I was like, Mom, I think you're like a 60 scoop baby. I know that I could close this chapter right now and leave it right here where it was and just go back to my old way of life. But I feel like I can't do that. Not with the knowledge that I now know. If anything, I am more determined than ever to uncover the truth. What started out as my journey to connecting to my own spiritual higher self and my Indigenous roots has now led me questioning everything in my life and my mother's life.
My name is Michelle Sylvia Voyager.
I was raised entirely by my mother alone. And for that reason, we have an extremely close relationship. So close, in fact, that we actually share the same home. I really love and appreciate spending as much time as I can with my family, especially my mom. I love hanging out and just having a good time and being silly with her.
Over here.
Awesome. Oh, look, I already got a piece.
Just wait. Double check. Ooh. What do you think? Yes.
I think yes.
Pretty sure.
I have 3 siblings, but I was raised with my sisters, my older sister Raelle and my younger sister Claire.
I'm 3 years older than Sarah, and then 5 years older than Claire.
My mom raised us as a single parent her entire life, and for that reason, we grew up very close. And now, even though we're all adults and well into our 30s, we still feel the same way.
We were close growing up and just got closer as we got older too.
My mom worked a lot when we were growing up, and that left us leaning on each other more than most kids, I feel like.
Well, mom was always at work, right? So I felt like we raised each other in a lot of ways. Like some of my first memories are being in that old house that Uncle Darcy still lives in. I remember like changing your diapers and like helping just around the house with you and like helping make you food and things.
Even though we didn't have a lot growing up, we always had each other, and my mom always provided a home that we felt safe to come home to.
Because why, as you guys got a little bit older, I said, there's not anything that you can't tell me, and that you would think that I might judge you, but I would never judge you. I need to know what's happening. And that's when our open lines of communication really started.
Because money was tight and my mom was a single parent, we lived most of our life in government subsidized housing. I sometimes feel like we got the luck of the draw because the government building that we were living in was actually in a very nice neighborhood.
We lived in BC housing. That was my goal after I had Claire. To me, BC housing was going to be my outlet for you girls to have more of a solid, this is where we're going to stay for a long time kind of house. We had 4 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, huge living room, a full basement. It was stability.
There were definitely times during my childhood where I remember feeling really angry that I didn't have my mom and my dad. I used to question why my mom couldn't just make things work with my dad. Now that I'm a mother as well, I definitely see a different perspective, and I respect why my mom chose to raise us on her own.
Unfortunately, it's like he never learned how to be a dad. He tended to rely on me to do everything, which I did. And then he would make an appearance every few years.
I now realize how lucky I am that I didn't remember any of the bad things growing up. My older sister, on the other hand, recounts a lot of those memories from childhood.
I think I was like 6 maybe, and because you were not even like 2 yet. And well, long story short, mom was a freaking mess, and she has to take me with her, and I could just tell she was like just more concerned with finding you. So after that, I think it got really bad, like for them in general.
Our youngest sister doesn't have any memories either. Thankfully, her recounts are all happy ones.
Our relationship with Dad, from what I remember, he came and visited us when I was 8 at the time. Come up from down south with our half-brother. I have fond memories of that trip. Those are the only memories I have of Dad.
I was pleasantly surprised that my mom was so open with me when I asked her so many questions about my past. I truly felt like one of the pieces of my healing journey meant understanding any trauma that I might have endured as a child. And just out of curiosity, I asked my mom if she had experienced any trauma in her childhood.
I tell people I'm adopted, but in actuality, I have always been a permanent foster child. I knew that I was Aboriginal. I knew I looked different.
Now, I had always known that my mom and her mother were not biological, but I honestly didn't really question it at all growing up. But as you can probably guess, now that I'm older, I definitely had more questions for her.
What kind of life would I have had? You know, how different would it have been?
I think about that
to
too.
be raised in that community where at some point before I get too old, I would love to go and spend like a summer there.
Me too.
Maybe into the fall.
Now, I've always wanted to tell my mom's story, and I finally had an opportunity present itself that I couldn't refuse. And I also felt like I was finally in the right headspace to be able to ask the right questions. Questions like, where was my mom born? Who were her biological parents? Did they love her? Was her mom looking for her? Could my mom be a 60s scoop baby and we just didn't even know it? And that's when I decided that we were going to make a documentary about our story. The first thing I wanted to do was compile any photographs or videos that I could find of my grandfather, my mom's biological father. I'm just working on some stuff for the documentary, and I'm trying to pull up some pictures of my grandpa. so I can incorporate it on the cover art that I'm working on. But it actually got me thinking, my grandpa on my mom's side, I can actually Google him and he comes up. Search. He has this video on YouTube. Oh my gosh.
My name is Charles Voyager, and I was born 1932. That makes it 84 and a half. Well, growing up in Jackers, it was a good life. Anything you got, you had to go hunt for it, or one way or another you get it. Hunt chickens, hunt rabbits, and I had pets, wild ones, like little hawks and stuff. I used to have four young hawks, and I raised.
I wasn't expecting that. This is insane. Okay. I have been saying that the hawk has been like my spirit animal for the last few years, and every day when I would drive to work, I would be driving down the highway, and on the same lamp post every single day was a hawk sitting there. And I kind of was like, I won't have a good day unless I see my hawk. Like, the hawk is my spirit animal. And every time this summer that I've traveled, I saw a hawk wherever I was. I went to Kamloops, Jasper, Terrace, Kitimat. Everywhere that I was, I saw a hawk on my adventure. And I just like thought it was coincidence. But then my sister gifted me this hawk feather so I can use with my smudging practice. And this is where it gets crazy. My daughter went to the museum with my sister, her auntie, and at the end she wanted something from the gift shops, and this is what she picked. This is a hawk, and I never really, my daughter is not even 2 right now. How would she know that this is like my spirit animal? I'd never conveyed that to her. And I don't even know if she would understand. Hearing that right there blows my mind. Like, that is... I
had him for a whole summer. The following year, just one came back for a week, and they took off and never come back.
That's not coincidence, right? Like, I know now that's my family looking over me.
I built a camp.
When I first came across this video, I was so excited, and I kind of took in all the emotions as they came. I was really excited, and I had to show my mom. And in all the excitement, I actually never watched the end credits of this video. It had popped up on YouTube, and it was posted by a channel called Real Youth. I didn't really think of anything at the time, but when I got to editing the video, I actually watched the end credits, and I was absolutely shocked to find out that this video was actually a previous StoryHive funded project. And guess who is sponsoring the creation of this documentary? That's right, StoryHive. I'm Sara Jones, and this is my documentary, Finding Home.